Okay, we've done the daily inspection. We've walked around the aircraft, we've checked the fuel, we've checked ourselves, we know where we're going, and we know what we're going to do. The weather's good, so switch on the electrics. Check that we're getting various readings, and then we will switch on the fuel pumps. That's fuel pump 1, fuel pump 2, and we're now going to turn over the engine, checking that there's no one around. And we turn it over for 10 seconds. This is a dry sump system, so we're getting some oil around the big end before we put any load on the engine. And now we will switch on the magnetos. The ignition is live and start the engine. Engine is running. Check that the oil pressure is good. Yes, we have oil pressure. Now we do the little dance where we try to get the choke off and increase the throttle so that the engine is running without choke. And there we have it. We are running without choke. So we will now call up the airfield, let them know that we're coming out to play, get the airfield information. And then we will move off and check the brakes, then check the steering, make sure that everything works and that the compass follows us. A few final checks, make sure temperatures and pressures are good, altimeter is set, and we're ready to go. Right. Ease the brake off, increase the revs, and she moves off. Slow the revs, brakes on, the brakes work, and increase the revs. Turning right, check the compass follows. Turning left, check that the compass follows. And we want to move off at a steady pace now, not too fast. The engine's still cold, the oil's still getting round there, and there's quite a few rabbit holes around here. You'll see my head bouncing up and down as we cross them. And we're coming out now. Little left turn here. We check left to make sure there's no traffic coming out from our left, and we look over at sort of 10 o'clock. There's a handy TV transmitter aerial up there about 8 kilometres away that lets us know that the visibility is good. And here at Popham we have a hill, very unusual in airfields, but we climb the hill. We're doing a maximum of 2,500 revolutions because the oil's still cold, and we will come to a halt sooner or later. We just leave the engine running until the oil temperature increases to a suitable level. And yep, that's it, we've come to a stop. And there we go, the oil temperature has now increased. We can put the revs up. She'll want a kick of about 3,500 and we get moving still up the hill. We're now listening to the radio quite a lot, and want to see who's around, what they're doing. Sounds quite quiet at the moment. I've got one chap who's about to take off. Don't know if there's anybody else in the circuit, but we'll stay listening. Just on the right there you can see the control tower, so that's who we talk to. And we're now on the taxiway for runway 08, which is over to our left. So taxiing past the control tower and the assorted parked aircraft. Stay well over to the left here, the ground's a little bit smoother, and there's the chap ahead of us taking off, so hopefully now there's nobody between us and the runway. And we've come up the runway and we're about to turn into wind to what we call power checks. This is where we put suitable revs on the engine, and then we drop each magneto in turn. Each cylinder has 2 spark plugs. Each spark plug is powered by a separate magneto. So we'll set revs at about 3,300, and then we will drop out the left magneto and then the right magneto, making sure that we have a similar rev drop on both outages, and that neither is too serious, and the engine keeps running at good revs, so if we did lose a magneto in flight, we would keep going. And that's it. Drop the revs back, make sure that the fuel level light is working, and then let's get back up towards runway 08. And listening to the radio, we've just heard someone call downwind. That means he's somewhere away from the airfield, paralleling the runway, making his approach. He's somewhere about 2 to 3 minutes away, so we're not going to get on and off the runway in the time available. So what we will do is we'll go up to the hold, and we will stop there and wait for him to come in. And we will tell Popham Radio that we're at the hold awaiting incoming traffic, which lets the radio station know what's going on. Also, the chap coming in, he's aware that we're there and waiting for him. He has a clear runway still. And there are the red boards that mark the hold for 08. And we've heard him call fine, he's coming in. There he is, he's coming in, he's looking good. So we're going to ease gently up towards the threshold. We will not go onto the runway until he's clear of it. But while we were there, we've released the rotor brake, we've released the stick retainer, we've switched on the transponder, which tells the whole world who has access to this information that we are up and about. And we are now approaching the threshold. Always remembering that the more runway you have in front of you, the better, so we keep well to the right in this case. Swing round, line up, get ourselves straight on the runway, ready for our departure. And you can just see in the distance there the aircraft ahead has cleared the runway, and he's called on the radio saying runway vacated. So set 1800 revs, engage pre-rotator, and there's the lovely noise of the rotor starting to speed up. This is the only time in a gyrocopter that power is applied to the rotor, otherwise it's completely self-powered. And there we have 130 rotor RPM, we pull the stick back, the centrifugal force now is stopping the rotor from contacting any parts of the aircraft. And we increase engine revs to bring the rotor up somewhere north of 200 revs a minute. And there we have it, pre-rotator released, throttle increased to full. Check that rotor RPM is increasing. It is increasing, the stick is back. She's lifting, we're away. Get the nose down, keep the speed up to 65 miles an hour. Once the speed is increasing, we can pull the stick back and initiate a proper climb. And there we are, climbing up over the runway using stick and pedals to hold us over the centre line. This is it seen from above. We're roaring along now. She's starting to become lively, and we're away just over the numbers. That's 110 metres or so. Increasing speed now, increasing speed, and back comes the stick. We're climbing. As you can see, we're at a slight angle to the runway, but maintaining over it. And there's another runway to the left. If anything went nasty now, we could just turn left a bit and land on that. Here we are climbing out, turning left to avoid flying over the petrol station, which is not a good move when you're not too high up in the air. And climbing nicely now, about 500 feet. We will just take the top off the revs. We were at 100%, which is the most I ever used when 1 up. 2 up we can go to 115% for short periods. And then you will notice that the revs drop and the nose comes down to maintain speed. This means we are at or approaching 800 feet, which is the circuit height for Popham. And there we go, there's the nose dropping. We're maintaining 65 miles an hour as we depart. This is one we filmed earlier. This chap was behind us. Fortunately, I heard what was going on the radio and knew roughly where he was, but he's overtaken us on the dead side while we were driving out. And he's cut across ahead of us. Fortunately, he was going faster than us. And this is us approaching now, coming in over the silos. Moderately non-standard approach here at Popham to avoid noise issues. We're at about 600 feet now. We've eased back to about 3,300 revs and we're maintaining speed at 65, aiming to come in over the right hand tree, also a tumulus, and then we will line up for the runway and drop down onto it. So just watching the speed now, watching the engine revs, watching the altimeter. So we're down about 300 feet now. Coming down gently, maintaining 65 miles an hour, coming up, lining up for the centre line. There's one aircraft waiting to take off, so he's heard us coming in, and he's at the hold as we were earlier for one of his frames. And that's us, we're over the hedge. We can take the revs off now, and she's coming down, maintaining 65 miles an hour. And as we approach, we just flare gently back, flare back, and that will slow us down. And she's on the ground. Increase revs, we want to get off the runway. The stick is forwards, that stops the rotor acting as a brake or parachute and taking us off again. And brake, 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 and a turning off the runway, ready for the guy behind us, and Popham radio, Golf Oscar Papa, runway vacated. And we come to a stop now. This stick is forwards, we've trimmed forwards, we put the stick retainer on, the landing light goes off, the transponder goes off, and now we motor gently back to the hangar. This is very useful because all the time the engine's running, it's cooling down the turbocharger, so by the time we get to the hangar, the engine will have cooled down sufficiently for us to switch it off without incurring any damage. And that yellow aircraft ahead you can see there, that's the guy who overtook us and got in ahead of us, and he's parked there now, ready for his visit. He's not a local here. And give him a wave, that's it, prove the locals are friendly, and yep, he waves back, nice chap. So it's now gently down the hill, rotor slowing down all the time. You can see how it dips and curls there, which is why we're rather careful with them. And now, little point of finesse, we will turn onto the rotor brake off, get her lined up fore and aft, it looks neat. Rotor brake on, and we come in looking smart, ship shape and Bristol fashion in a gyrocopter. Okay, down the hill now, dab on the brakes, minimum revs. This is entertaining in winter, or in the wet we can put the brakes on here and slither all the way down. Sometimes we do even switch the engine completely off and just let gravity do its tricks. Looking out as ever for the rabbit holes, and looking out for anybody who might pop out from behind a hedge or a hangar. And here we come in towards our parking spot, avoiding the rabbit holes, bouncing gently over them. And there's someone outside our hangar, there's no big deal. I'll help him push his aircraft out the way, he'll help me push mine in. And coming to a gentle controlled stop, we park the aircraft, check the Hobbs meter, that's how many hours we've done, and it's off with the fuel pumps, off with the magnetos, off with the power, and we're there.